Yeah, I'm recording this session. So good evening, everyone. Today we are going to discuss some of the very interesting setup, and feel free to stop me. I think we have a smaller group today. So let's make it a little bit conversational. Otherwise it gets very monotonous. It's just that when you're not speaking, mute it. Otherwise background noise comes, right? So with that, I wanted to cover three things. Let's see how the things go and how clear it is. Three setup, in fact, which are pretty much based on price action. They are not based on any indicators like moving averages or RSI or stochastic or any of those, right? So it's purely you look at the price action on the chart and you take a decision. So the three things which I wanted to cover today, the first one was inside bar, and I think some of you may have traded it already, but I just wanted to go over. It's a very strong setup which I have seen working well for intraday as well as for positional. So if you can use it, typically I would say that one should use it in 3 time frame, and we'll talk about it. So that's the first strategy, which is the inside bar strategy. The second strategy which we are going to discuss is open high and open low. Now that is more of a intraday strategy. So open high and open low is something which you apply for the intraday, not for the positional trade. And the third one is volatility contraction. And how do we look at it? So if time permits, we'll go deeper into volatility contraction. Personally, I don't trade volatility contraction so much because I mainly trade in options and futures. So, I would also rely on, if any of you trade volatility contraction, then feel free to pitch in. Okay. So those are the three things. Let me start with inside bar, and I will share my screen so that I straight away go on a chart to explain what is this inside bar strategy. Okay. So hope you are able to see my screen. Okay. Now let me change. Let me change it to any favorite stock any of you have. We can check it in that. Any suggestion on the stock we can check?
SBI.
SBI.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the SBI. Okay. Now, as I was saying, this strategy is something which we can apply on intraday. For that, we will use a 15-minute chart. If we are buying a stock for, let's say, a few weeks to a few months, then we will look at the strategy on a daily time frame, on a day time frame. And if we are even longer term investor, we want to hold the stock for a year, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, then we will apply the strategy on the weekly time frame. Now, what is this strategy? It is inside bar. So from there, you should be able to make some sense. Essentially, what we are talking about, we look at two candles. Okay. Now, let me just take one example where we look at two candles. Okay. Maybe there are many two candles, but okay. Let me look at this candle. Okay, where my cursor is right now, which was the 10th October candle. Okay. Now, since it is inside bar, essentially what we are saying, there are two candles. One is the mother candle and the other one is the child candle. And child candle is completely inside the mother candle, which means that not just the body, which is open and closed, we will look at the high flow of both the candle, both the mother candle and the child candle. And the high of the child candle should be lower than the high of the mother candle, and low of the child candle should be higher than the low of the mother candle, right? So the entire child candle from its high to low should be within the mother candle. Okay, so that is the inside candle. There are a few other things we will look at it, but let's.
Is it wick inclusive or only body?
Entire thing, entire candle, right? Not just the wick, but the entire candle, including wick and body, everything, right? High and low, basically. So if you look at the candle I am in, the high was 533.9 and the low was 522.15. Okay. Now let's look at the next candle. So next candle high is 533.60. So previous high was 533.90. The next high is 533.60, which means it is lower. It can be even this 30 paisa lower, which is fine. But 533.6 is lower than 533. So the high hits the condition. If you look at low of this particular candle, it is 522.15. Okay. And the low of the next candle is 525.6. So the low is higher than this low, which means this entire candle, high and low, which is 533.6 is the high, 525.6 is the low, is within the previous candle high, which was 533.9, and the low, which is 522.50. So this candle meets our criteria of inside candle. Okay. So that is one criteria. To make this more strong, ideally the mother candle should not be a doji candle. Ideally, right? So for example, you look at this particular candle, 7th November candle. 7th November candle, if you look at the candle, the high is 622.9, low is 607.85. Now, if you look at the next candle, its high was 622.55, low is 610.7. So from the definition perspective, these two candles meet the criteria. The candle which was formed on the 7th November can be the mother candle, and the candle which was formed on the 9th of November is the child candle. But you can take a trade, but just for the probability, it is better to look at the mother candle, which is not like a doji candle as we see on 7th of November. Okay, so it should be something what we see on 30th of September. Okay, so that's point number 2. Point number 3 is, for this setup to work more effectively, the child candle and the mother candle, the color should be different. Now, by definition, even if the color is same, both are green, it is still a valid setup. It is still mother and child. But to increase the probability, if the child candle is of a different color than the mother candle, the probability goes up. Okay. So these are the 3 things. One is high and low of the child should be completely within high and low of the mother candle. Color should ideally be different, and mother candle should not be a doji. Doji, everyone understands, right? The open and close. I mean, if you see, the body is very, very small. Okay. Any questions so far on these 3 conditions? I'll try to document it. Yeah, go ahead.
So upon these conditions, what is inferred? Sorry, I joined 3 or 4 minutes late.
Explaining the condition.
So,
so I'm just saying what is inside bar, right? I mean, I will come to that. Of course, we have to take a trade. We need to understand where do we take the trade. We need to understand what is our target, what is our stop loss, right? So I will cover all those points. But right now, I was just trying to say, how do we identify a mother candle and a child candle?
Okay, understood.
Okay, so take the example, which now let's take some example where it is not. Okay, so for example, okay, this is also a mother candle and child candle. For example, 16 December on SBI. Okay, 16 December high was 615.5, low was 593.6. And if we look at the next candle, 19 December, 608.3 is the high and low is, 609.45 is the high, low is 602.9. Now, it meets the mother and the child criteria, but it does not meet the 2 different color criteria. Okay. So this setup was not so strong. However, if we look at the next candle, right? The next candle, which was formed on 20th of December. 20th of December is also an inside candle if we compare against the 16th December candle. So it need not be just the consecutive candle in this particular case, as long as the other candle is not violating. Because you formed one candle, if this wouldn't have been an inside candle, you would have this setup would have been white. But this candle was the inside candle, and then again we are forming an inside candle. So it's still a valid setup. It remains a valid setup. And then we can always trade based on the conditions which I'm going to talk. Okay. This candle, okay, if you look at 5th December candle and you look at 6th December candle. Now, as you can see, a large part of the 6th December candle or the entire body of the 6th December candle is within the 5th December candle. But if we look at the high of 5th December candle, the high was 618, whereas the 6th December candle high is 619.8. So it is not a valid inside candle. This will not be considered as a valid setup. Okay, because the high is higher, even though the entire body is within the body of the entire body of the 6th December candle is within the body of the 5th December candle. Okay, I hope I've now explained very clearly what is the inside candle. Now, the second, you spot an inside candle. What do you do with it? Okay, so what we do is, once we spot the inside candle, we mark the high and the low of the inside candle. Sorry, of the mother candle. Okay, so let me come back to maybe this candle. We can mark the high and the low. This is the high, and this is the low. Okay, I'll reduce this. So we have marked the high and the low. Now our setup is that we will wait either the high or the low to be broken by another candle, and the close has to be below that. Not just so. Once this setup is formed, okay, we are looking at the mother candle. We are not looking at the child candle. We know that the mother and the child candle setup, which is the inside bar setup, has got created. Okay, the low of this mother candle was 593.6. Okay, we will, and the high was 615.5. Now we will see where this high or the low is getting. Okay. Right, 593.4. Okay. Now, if we look at this particular candle, let me just mark it correctly. Low was just 1 second. Low is 593.6, right? Let me mark it with red. And the high of this candle is 615.5. Okay, so now we have marked high and low. Now, if you look at this particular candle on 21st December, 21st December candle was closing at 593.4. Okay, so this close is 20 paise below the low of the 16th December candle, low of the mother candle. So once this is seen, then our setup is activated. We get our setup. Okay. Now, if it is broken on the downward, we will sell that thing. We will take a short trade. If it is broken on the upside, then we will take a long trade, right? Now, for the long investing, you will not be shorting. So then we will look at a setup where there is a long trade setup, and we will see that. Okay, maybe I can show that long trade setup. Let me just check 18th October and 19th October. Just give me 1 second, just to ensure that, because intraday we will short, but if you're not trading on futures as I mentioned. So here the high of 18th October was 563.4 and the high of 19th October was 563.4. So both are same. Now that still meets the criteria, and the low is of course green, right? So we will mark this particular candle, high and the low. I mean, I will have to adjust that, but bear with me. This is just for the illustration purpose. So we mark the high and the low. I mean, this color is only for our own understanding. It doesn't have any implication on the setup. 563.4. I mean, all these changes, etc., is all for our own visual purpose. It doesn't have any bearing on the setup. Now, if we see this, we see an inside candle on 19th October. We see 20th October, nothing happened. The candle did not close either above or below the 18th October candle. Similarly, the candle on the 21st October also didn't close above or within. Now, if we look at the candle on 24th October candle is conveniently closing above the high of the mother candle on 18th October. Okay. Now, this is where we will get into the trade. Once the close is above the high, we get into a long trade and you will get into a buy trade here. Okay. So once you have spotted the setup, you will look at the high or the low of the mother candle to be broken, and it is not in the running candle. Like during the day, the candle breaks it. For example, here, during the day, probably this candle came below the low of 18th October candle. But this is not a valid candle. You have to wait for the close of that candle. Whichever time you're applying, you have to look at all the breaking and everything has to be in the same time frame. So we are looking at a daily time frame. We looked at 18th October candle and 19th October candle, which formed an inside candle pattern. 20th October, during the day, the candle came below the 18th October, but it did not close below it. So it is not a valid setup. Similarly, on 21st October, it went above the high of 18th October, but did not close above the high of 18th October. So it's not a valid entry point. But when we come on 24th October, this particular candle is closing above the high of 18th October candle. So now, as soon as this happens, we buy immediately on the next day. 25th October, you can buy, or towards the close, let's say 5 minutes is there and it's very clear. You can enter almost at the close of the market, let's say 325 or whatever. Otherwise, you enter at the open of the next day, which is 24th October. Because even if, let's say, you're not looking at the market, you're doing your analysis post-market, you see this condition is met. Next day, when the market opens, you make a long entry. So far, so good. Everyone is with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So once you make this entry, how do you decide on what is the stop loss? Okay. And what is your target? What should be your target? So first, let's look at the stop loss. The stop loss will be low of the mother candle. Okay. So if I am making an entry here, okay, which was at 571 rupees 20 paise, I will mark this low, which was 546.10. 546.10, right? So this point, or you can keep 1 rupees less than that to be on a safer side, because many traders, many algos would be trading. Now, of course, they also don't keep the exact level, but this becomes your stop loss. Okay. So your stop loss is 546.10. And where is your entry? Your entry is 571.20. So stop loss is clear. If we are taking a long trade, which means we are buying, our stop loss will be low of the mother candle. If we would have sold, then the stop loss, like in this particular case, if we are selling, then the stop loss will be higher. Stop loss is clear to everyone? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's compute how much is the stop loss in terms of the point. Okay. So if you look at the entry here, 571.2 minus 546.1 is roughly how much? 25 rupees, right? So 25 rupees, you can calculate exact. So we will go with minimum 1:1 risk reward, which means if my stop loss is 25, I will target 25 rupees, but most likely I can get even 50 rupees. So my first target will be 25 rupees profit, and my second target will be 50 rupees profit. Okay. So that is the first thing so I entered at 572 for a target of 597. Okay. And and this is my stop loss. So clearly you see that we met both the target, right? I mean, because we are not hitting the stop loss. Okay. So, this is the setup essentially. And the reverse will be if I'm getting into a selling setup. So I can look at the Nifty chart, for example, and you can do it on a weekly time frame also. So let's look at the Nifty weekly chart. This is a very interesting, very recent right now. You look at the Nifty weekly chart. This is let me remove the super trend indicator. So the week ending 2nd January, high was 251.95, low was 17,795.55. This week closer, 9 Jan or whatever. No, sorry. This is the current week. Let me not look at that. Let me go back. So 26th December, the week starting 26th December, you look at the high and the low. High was 18,265 and the low was 17,774. You look at the next week, starting 2nd of Jan, this high and the low is within the 26th December high and the low. So this, and the color is also different, and both are strong candle. It's not a doji candle. And this is happening on our index. So what we will do is, we will mark this mother candle on Nifty. Okay. I mean, of course, we can adjust the thing. Let me not take too much time. You understood what I'm saying. And right now, we have got the setup. Any side is broken on Nifty, we should see, as you can see, this is like a, this candle. Sorry, I have to mark the high, high and the low, this candle, right? Yeah. So this candle range, just give me one second. This candle is 300-point candle, roughly 298.50 point. So we should expect any side it breaks, we should expect minimum 300-point move on that side. So if, and again, it has to be on the weekly close. In the running market, we cannot look. When I say running market, during the week, we cannot do this trade. If we are following this particular setup, of course, we can do any trade we want, but not following this setup. For this setup to be valid, the close has to be either above this line or below this line. Okay. And this is right now, this is the setup. So you can keep an eye on Nifty itself. Okay. This is on Nifty. It happens on, as you can see, let me show you also Reliance, for example, which is one of the. Now, who will look at the weekly? A real long-term trader. Okay. So if I look at Reliance, I think I've already marked, okay, because I may have been doing some analysis. You look at this particular candle on 19th December week. After that, the next candle, which was 26th December week, is an inside candle. However, so far, we have not broken the high and the low of this candle. So 2633 is the high of Reliance. 249.25 is the low of Reliance. Please watch these two levels on Reliance on a weekly basis. Whichever side breaks, you can be in that direction. If you are a person who only buys Reliance, then you will buy if the upside is broken. You will not do anything if the downside is broken. You will just watch it. But if you play in the future, you can short it. You can might as well go. But please note, this is the weekly candle. So weekly candle is a long-term play, and thereby future, etc., becomes kind of difficult because you will have to keep on rolling over the future. There will be cost associated to it. So for a longer term, when you're looking at a weekly candle, you will look for a weekly close above 2633 on Reliance. Once the weekly close is above 2633 on Reliance, you can play Reliance for a 200 to 400 point up. And this is all, as we are talking, this is happening, and this is the setup. Okay. For an intraday, you can just look at a 15%. Okay. So Reliance chart, 15-minute. Yeah. So you look at these two candles. So 10 January is today, right? Yeah. So as you can see, we formed a candle at 130, and the candle which was formed at 145 was an inside candle. Once the low of 130 candle is broken, you can see the fall, right? It pretty much gave you, we will have to compute it, but I think it gave you 1:1 risk reward. Okay, and then you got out, right? So as soon as this low is broken here, 2557.05, if you were watching this, you could have, on the close of this particular candle, of course. Once the close is below this, you would have gone short, and then whatever you got. Okay. Better, I look at it on 15-minute, but if my view is that if one has to trade, it should not be intraday that much. I mean, intraday, it works, but there are other setups on the intraday that work. So it is better to do your stock picking using this setup. Okay. Any questions here? Anyone else? Is it clear? Anil, Prasanna, Sadev, I mean, is this particular setup clear? Is a very
yes, Dheeraj. I think it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I will quickly show you. There are screeners. So how do you even identify which are the... So if I just look at the screener, I'm just on the charting. So charting has inside bar screeners. I just go there, and I can, if I want to say select only on Nifty 100 stocks, right? I change the filter to Nifty 100, run the stock, and I see Dabur as one of the stock which has formed this, right? So let's look at what is happening in Dabur. You're able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will move. This was a daily chart. There are screeners for the 15-minute and the weekly also. The one which I showed was a daily chart. So look at 9 Jan candle and today's candle. This is, let's say, if you're doing analysis right now, you got Dabur as one of the probable candidates where you can play this strategy. So you will just mark Dabur here. You'll mark Dabur here, and you will wait for a day candle. I mean, I will have to accurately mark it at the high, but that is again just for our visual thing. Has no bearing on the setup. It's just to demonstrate. And we will see this this high. This high is 556. So 556 has to break on the high on a closing basis. So on a closing basis, if there is a day candle which closes above 556, you can go long on Dabur. Okay. Yeah. So this is how you do your analysis and you identify. For example, you look at 27 December. Same Dabur. 27 December and 28 December. 28 December is an inside candle, right? So you see what happened on 27th and 28th. Right? Okay, let me remove this. So if we would have been trading Dabur, this candle on 29 December closed below the low of the mother candle. Then we go down, this becomes the sell. So we have not received, I mean, though it has gone up, so you would have seen some loss on the screen, but it has not touched the stop loss. And now you see your target. Okay. So we have touched yesterday a low of 545.7. Okay. Our entry would have been at 563. So 18 rupees is already in profit. And this is a short setup, right? So, I mean, this is just an example which I have taken. Okay. So this is an important setup. Try to practice, try to, don't cut short. For example, anywhere where you see there is a little bit of difference between the mother and child, don't trade that setup. Okay. It has to be exactly inside the child high and the low has to be inside the high and the low of the mother candle. And don't trade during the day, it is a day time frame. Then you have to see the day candle to close or exactly a 325, etc., where you know that it will for sure close. During the day at 12 o'clock, you see that is breaking high or the low. Don't get into the trade because you want to see the daily close breaking the high and the low, high or the low of the mother candle. Okay. So I'm moving on from this setup, right? So this is the inside bar setup. It's a very famous setup. A lot of traders use this. Okay. And as I'm saying, the beauty of this setup is that it works on intraday, but more important, it works on the longer term time frame. You want to keep something for a few days, weeks, or even for months. It's just that if you want to hold something for months, you will look at the weekly time frame. And if you want to keep something for a few days to few weeks, you will look at a daily time. Okay. The other setup which I wanted to discuss was the open high low. And again, we are having a setup here in Nifty. So this open high low is a pure intraday setup. It is not a positional setup. Open high low works on the indices, it works on the stocks, whatever I'm talking about. Even the inside bar works on the index, it works on the stocks, it works on both. Okay? And the open high low also works on the stocks, it works on the index. So today, let's look at what happened. Now, for the open high low, you look at a 15-minute time frame because it's an intraday strategy. Now, the setup is very simple. Okay. The open should be either high or open should be low. You look at the first 15-minute candle. So let's look at the first 15-minute candle of Nifty today. Okay. We opened at 9:15. 9:15, you look at on the top where high and the open is written. Open was 18,127.6. High was 18,127.6. So open was equal to high. And as soon as the low is broken, you will get into a short trade. Okay, as simple as that. So you'll mark the low of this, which was 1826.65. Yeah. You have a breaking here, and this can be running. You don't even have to wait for the close. Once it is broken, you get into a trade. Now, this was a fairly long candle. I don't know, maybe the open was something which looked little, out of the syllabus. But it's a long candle. Ideally, the preference would be that it is a lower candle so that you can set your stop loss because your stop loss will be high of this particular candle. So this would be your stop loss. Your SL is here. Now, but that's a too big an SL, right? It's 100-point SL. That's become too weak for the intraday. So you can bring it down to half. You can keep it 50. But as per the setup, the stop loss is the high of the candle if you're shorting and low of the candle if you are going long. Okay. So this is our SL. And as you can see during the day, this SL was never breached. And not just the 100-point, we got much more than that, right? We got 170 point, 180 points. And of course, as I say, there are many ways people keep on trading SL, right? I mean, if I'm short, then I keep on looking at the high of the previous candle and be in the trade as long as the high is not, right? And then, of course, you can partly here, you can leave the rest. That's how do you fine tune your own strategy. This is a very simple thing. Let's look at on, say, Reliance, what is happening. So Reliance, as you can see, this was again open high today. So no brainer, it was following Nifty. Let's look at some other day when there is an open low. Yeah, the market is really bearish. Otherwise, you're not even getting an open low. So open low is same, right? I mean, it's just that in open low, you will look for a long trade. Wow, this is like really. Let me look at the daily time frame and then select. Yeah, this on 2nd September. Okay. So 2nd September, let me change it to 15-minute and go on the 2nd September. Second September, right? Where is it? 950. No, I don't know how it was showing the open high. Because this is not open. Anyway, I mean, I think you're getting it. I will have to look for the exact, I think, yeah, 5th September. 5th September, open was 2532 and the low was 2532.2, right? I mean, there is still, it is not exactly, the difference is minor. And once the high of, once this high is broken, one could have taken a long trade. I mean, this is the concept. Basically, the whole logic is that once the market opens, immediately after opening, if there is a downward movement, it doesn't even go a single point above the opening, then that means that day there is a downtrend, strong downtrend. And the day it does not go down from the opening, it keeps on going up, there is a strong uptrend. So you play for uptrend or the downtrend. That's the whole logic. Yeah. Any questions on this? Any question on this open high low strategy? Again, there are screeners. You can go to charting and you can search and you will see, do some playing around. There are screeners, ready-made screeners available on OpenAI. So, but again, this is intraday strategy.
Can you touch upon a bit about the screener? First time I'm hearing about it.
Okay. Yeah, so there are some screeners which put certain criteria and they, based on whatever logic that you define, they help you to select the stocks, right? So one of the screeners which I use is charting. Okay, let me share my screen. I mean, there are other, Komal, which one you use, screener?
Charting.
Okay. So this is charting. There are other screeners also in the market. Okay. So there is a free version also. You get a lot of stuff on the free version itself. You don't have to buy. Now, if you go here, okay. So you see there is something called screeners. Okay. Now there are two things. You can create your custom screener, or you can use something which is already created. A lot of people just keep it and publish it. So now we were looking at the last candle totally inside previous candle, right? That is what I was trying to show you. So if you look at that particular condition, so it says that the stock passes all the filters in the Nifty 100 segment. Now this is something which we have selected. I want to see it on Bank Nifty. I can do that. Only the stocks that get traded in the futures, I can do that. So, I can select that. And then this is the logic. That latest high is lower than the 1 day ago high. Latest low is greater than the 1 day ago low. This is what I said. In addition, he has, just put a filter criteria that the volume should be too low. So he has said that the volume should be higher than 500,000. So don't look at some penny stock where the volume typically is not high. So he has put the volume condition. Latest close is greater than 100. So this particular person doesn't want to trade on something which is less than 100 rupees. But if you want to omit this, you can do this and you can run your scan, right? Suppose whatever condition you want to remove, you can just do this, or you can enable or disable that particular condition. So if I'm okay to look at something which is trading at less than 100 rupees, I will do this. Or you want to edit it, I want to say that no, I will buy something which is above 200 rupees. I can just change it to 200 rupees and I can see, copy the scan, run the scan. So I can just run the scan. Okay. So this is the scan. So a lot of great scans are there. You go here. There are things like, what is bullish for the next day. So these are all again set up, right? As you can see, there are so many conditions here. Based on all that condition, tells you what is.
So whatever you have spoken in terms of certain market indicators, those things can be coded over here, essentially.
Yeah. And already there are many canned ones where people like this one, right? And you can take a template and it is much easier, to understand. So let's say you want to check instead of 20 EMA, let's say your setup is 11 EMA, you just change it to 11 and just give it. So it's very flexible, right? So you can you can look at the screener, you can check whatever makes sense, experiment with it. So as per this one, HCL Tech is, I don't know how, showing a bullish, I know how, based on all this criteria, whether HCL Tech will go up tomorrow or not, I don't know. But as per all the criteria which is listed here, most likely HCL Tech should be going up tomorrow. Okay. So, yeah, does this answer the question? On the screener?
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. So a lot of things you can intraday, you can look at, there are even fundamental scans. It gives a 9:30. It says there is a buy, screener, right? So today there was a buy on Zydus Life Sciences. Okay. So this screener gave a buy at 9:30 a.m. Zydus. Let's see what happens to Zydus today. Zydus. 9:15. Sorry, 9:30. It told you to buy. Yeah, if one would have followed this, this candle was 9:15 candle. This is a 9:30 candle. You see this? Someone would have bought it just based on that screener. See the profit today. It doesn't happen. So many days it can happen, right? So today, as you can see, Zydus, it worked, right? 9:30, the screener said, go buy Zydus. And you bought Zydus. Just look at how beautiful, fantastic profit, right? So this no harm trying out a few things. If you're really interested, then look at some of these, and then you realize which ones are popular, which one is working for you. Sorry, was there a question?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Unmuted.
Okay. Yeah. So that's all about screener. Anyone here traded the volatility contraction pattern? Because that's Komal. I mean, do you look at?
No, 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 no.
Okay. Okay. So fundamentally, the volatility contraction pattern has been made famous by a guy called Mark Minervini. Of course, there are other folks, but Mark Minervini is a very famous American trader. If you remember, I had shared one video about him where he just goes after technical. They asked him what is the fundamental, I mean, what is the business of the company? He didn't know. The same guy. So he looked at this, and of course, there are other things. So essentially, again, whatever these patterns are, right? Always remember that the only way we will understand is we need to understand what is the concept behind that particular pattern. For example, can you try to make an attempt on what is the concept behind this inside bar pattern that I know? What could be the psychology? What could be the market reasoning? Why that particular setup works? Why inside bar? Inside bar works. It's a very high probability setup. Why does it work? What happens if there is a candle within the previous candle? Any attempt? I mean, any guesses? See, basically what is happening is range is reducing, right? So the previous candle formed a higher range. And by range, I mean the high and the low. And the next candle is forming a lower range. Whenever there is a contraction, it's like exhaustion in the market. Whatever is the selling which is coming is getting absorbed. Whatever is the buying which is coming is getting absorbed. So that slowly the range is becoming narrow beyond a point. When that gets completely exhausted, after that, whenever there is a breakout, that breakout is fairly strong. It's like the wave. If you look at the sea, there is a bigger wave and there is a smaller wave, and then it comes towards the end, right? And there will be a series of those small wave, and then suddenly there will be a big wave that will come. Okay, so similar kind of thing happens in the market if the range is contracting. Okay, after so just look at some of these things. For example, here we were even in Jidus, right? If you look at Jidus, I'm just taking a very random example. If you see here, these are very, very small candles, right? After a series of some of the large candles, we are forming, this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost 8 very low range candles, 8 days, right? Before that, as you can see, there was a fall. After the fall, there was an upside. And then you can see that there is an exhaustion. What is happening in this phase? What is happening in this phase? I don't know. Okay, I'll have to use something different. Okay. There is an exhaustion in the market. Whatever supply is coming, someone is just taking that, and the supply is getting exhausted. After the fall was there, there was a bit of rise, and then the supply is getting exhausted. No one is there to sell. Okay, and then you see a breakout from this range here, and then you see an up. Okay, so typically this is very visible pattern. Let's look at even on Nifty. Probably Nifty. Let me look at a daily chart. Nifty has been highly volatile, so probably not a great example. Let's look at HDFC Bank. You see here the range was pretty narrow, went up, and then there is a larger. So basically, you look from left to right Again, it's not the right example. Let me just look at. Okay. So you look at this range here in this. So you look from left to right. Okay. And you look whether the range is getting contracted. You can clearly see this range in this phase was higher than the range which is getting formed after that. And then, we are witnessing a down move. So pretty much that's the concept. Even I don't trade too much on the volatility contraction, but I just thought I'll mention so that you can go back and maybe if you're interested, you can do some research. And there are a lot of people who are long-term traders or the long-term investors. They look at the contraction. And the market phases are called accumulation and distribution. So when there is an accumulation going on, people keep on buying. And at some point in time, all the supply gets exhausted. And that is when there is an up move that comes. That's a fairly strong up move. Similarly, the selling phase is called the distribution phase. When there is a selling that keeps on happening and the contraction happens, that means the selling is getting exhausted. Now after that, there is a down move that could be fairly strong. So accumulation phase, distribution phase, and then after accumulation or distribution, there is a strong up move or a down. And that psychology, since I don't trade it so much, I don't have a lot of things to share, but wanted to mention that so that in case you are interested, you can go back and do some more reading or the research. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share today. Hope it was useful. If you have any questions, we can discuss. Yep. All well? All good? We can close the call today?
Yep. Thank you, Dheeraj.
Okay. Okay then. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Thank
Thanks.